Listen carefully. America calls it the lone wolf because the potential terrorist has a wolf philosophy. Okay, Rome has infested the streets. I want you all to look at a picture of a white occultist. Look at the Matrix, right, guys, and ask yourself, what is the connection between Hollywood, the occult, and that look? Now look at a gang member, a black gang member, right? Now, of the gangs, when it comes to the occult, the black gang members do the best job at looking like a very scary demonic being in the flesh, to make a long story short. And that is exactly what they are going for. Look at Satan's disciples and how they claim that they made their gang after a character in a comic book. The problem with that is when you couple that with all the other occult symbols, right? The crook and flail, the pyramids, the pea stones, the vice lords, right? Vice lords, gangsta disciples, right? Well, who are the gangsters? They were mafia guys in Chicago, right? They were Italian guys. They were Romans. You look at the blue and the red, right? You look at the blue and the red in the gangs, in the Crips and the Bloods, in the Capoeira gangs, where they used to use ribbons, and in the Chicago gangs. And you see that these colors aren't just on the flag and the police cruiser, right? They are occult colors. And when you do your research into the meanings of the colors on flags and the original purpose of the letters, for example, H, okay? Hades, before he was called Hades, was symbolized by a symbol. And that symbol became the letter H. Okay, the symbol was the Egyptian hieroglyph for a fence. When you look at the Greek architecture, you see these pillars in a very specific style. Those pillars are the Hades version of a fence. Look it up, okay? The H represents hell or Hades, and people believe they are quote-unquote raising hell to get rich. Hades was also the god of the harvest. A lot of people struggle with this one. Why does the Bible talk about the harvest? And how do Masons get away with pretending that the God in the Bible is also the devil? Well, there were different gods competing over the harvest, right? They would take their portion of the harvest back to their temple. You know, you would give tributes to their temple. And the people who had more tributes to give or who had more faith were helped out by the temple. And the temple would research things like mirrors and how to use the sun in a way to help their followers. How to use the sun to grow plants. They would focus on the wind and how to use the wind to spread chemicals. So when you see the carpet bombing of the Vietnamese, you see the covert drugging of political dissidents to soft kill them in the same way you would kill pests with pesticides. It has to do with control of the harvest. Okay, so you have different secret societies teamed up together who have an agreement that regardless which one of them is in power temporarily, they will maintain the others, and the others in turn will help them maintain their power. And they go by age, right? They don't go day by day, they go age by age. And there's a bunch of house niggas who say that this is what the ancestors wanted, which again is a half-truth, right? This is what the fucking cowardly house niggas that sold out to the Romans and the Greeks wanted, right? The deal they made when they presented the Rosetta Stone, for example. Okay, there was house niggas that were kissing Roman and Greek ass, and that's mainstream history. And some of the Greeks were too fat to stand on their own. They were pederasty, homosexuals, bisexuals, androgynous deities. They're the ones who insisted that angels are hermaphrodites, okay? These are those guys. They were the first ones to translate the Bible, as history says, which is not exactly the truth. Yes, they are, for all intents and purposes, the main reason we live in the world we do. The fathers of history include the history of temples and religions and philosophies, which of course we all know America and the West focuses on Greece when it comes to the philosophy department or history or anything else, right? So what you see here is exactly what you expect. The people from the temples taking sides with the rich who give them the most money to do their research on how they have turned alchemy into chemistry. So it is the same pagan guys who were mixing chemicals um, over the years, teaming up with the rich who gave them money to help them come up with love potions and snake oil and stupid stuff that didn't work and stuff that they can make money off of. So when all is said and done, psychiatry is exactly what you would expect. It is the evolution of the snake oil and the love potions and the pagan nonsense that doesn't work. Pagans picking up stones from the ground and little bitch shit like that and making a business out of it using psychology and your insecurities and their race's insufficiencies to secure their power. So basically, they are soft killing people, as they always have, to control the harvest using chemicals. Like they carpet bombed the Vietnamese, and they bombed the Palestinians. And so the moment you try to strike back using their tactics, they call you a lone wolf because they're fascists, right? They are Nazi, Roman, Greco-Roman, Nordic, Viking, French, English. They are teamed up together. So they say, hey, if you try to fight fire with fire, you try to fight Greek fire with Greek fire, so to speak, you're doing it by yourself. Okay, you are not officially pushing the Roman agenda, which is funded by their Jewish allies. And you can look into history to see where some Jews and Romans intermarried. And that's, there's some famous examples as well. And there's also the Persians, right? Esther and so on and so forth. Okay, there's famous examples of Babylonians, Persians having sex with the Jews. And then they have a favorable view of the Jews, right? Because the Jews some secret society's Jews made a deal with them to help them expand their empire in exchange for certain things. So again, in case you don't understand, this is the evolution of chemical warfare and soft killing the enemies of the white man's temple, which is shallow and concerned with fertility and the harvest. There's sex cults and the harvest. The harvest is connected to human reproduction, and so does animal breeding and genetic engineering, social Darwinism, scientific racism, eugenics, quote-unquote positive eugenics, right? It's saying that some Roman temples were right because eugenics is a basic part of Western culture. Plato and the 10 Tables of Rome and Nazi eugenics and so on. So they're saying that, hey, eugenics is a basic part of Western culture. So is alchemy, and so is conning people, and so is cheating the black man out of his rightful place, and making deals with gangs like the Mexican Mafia to ban Christianity because it elevates the black man and gives him more reverent power, as science proves more and more, no matter how hard they try to falsify evidence, that the Jews, the Egyptians, and the early Christians were all black and mixed black. And we talk about the Bible, right? He says, don't give I didn't come to give the bread for the children to the dogs, right? And the Canaanite, remember, the Canaanite is like another tribe. It's like the House of Fulanis and the Igbos. And I go there and say, hey, I'm not going to heal you because you're a fucking dog that lives next door to my people that we have a long history of fighting. And of course, the Canaanites fought with the Jews over Israel, right? So the same idea. It's like, look, you are dogs compared to us Africans with higher thought. Yes, we have common ancestors, but compared to us, you are dogs, not because of your genetics, but because, per se, but because of your people's culture and lack of spiritual depth and moral will, which is exactly why the people with an adverse narrative to Christianity, whether they're communists or white Christians who have sworn an oath to keep the church white, are dogs. They are dogs, and Judah is preferred. And whether you look at it religiously, scientifically, or any other way, you're forced, in any other way that reflects reality, you're forced to the conclusion that yes, the blacks expelled every other race, and they have been trying to cover up for hundreds and if not thousands of years. And as a result, the evolution of the temple and the scientists who hid from the church are using different means to administer chemical fumes, whether they are flying over with helicopters, as ridiculous as it seems. Think about Vietnam and Afghanistan and how much the white man loves to use helicopters to protect America from enemies, foreign and domestic, and to do aerial denial, right? We don't want you in the room making videos, so we're going to bomb this place with chemicals. Either you're going to try to tough it out and get fucked up and make a, chemical-induced video, or, you're going to leave and not make the video. And of course, why did I go to Santa Cruz, right? One of the reasons was my parents going to Croy Road, not far away from Grape Canyon Park, to meet with Sfido and the White Power structure to drug me, okay? And at one point, they were so afraid of me retaliating that they closed the road and said residents only, even though there was no fire. And I have a lot more information available, and I'm sure they will kill me before I can get it out. If you've been watching my videos recently, you'll see that I'm lacing you with jewels, potent jewels, that I had to work my way up to learn myself and to articulate to you, or else you would have been like, what the hell is he talking about? But as soon as I point out helicopters and chemical warfare and how America has been refining it for years and how they have vowed to bring the war on terrorism to the streets of America, and to, I live in a rural area on 15 acres of land, and there are the airports, San Martin Airport and SJX and so on aren't very far away. So it is a walk in the park, as well as military bases, right, in Monterey or some shit. It's a walk in the park for them to do this, okay? And they have University of Phoenix and Stanford and so on doing experiments in science departments and behavioral sciences foundations, advanced study for behavioral sciences. And they have them mixing chemicals, not because they cure diseases, because, they know human nature can only be cured by returning to your natural self and looking at black people for advice on how to do so. It might sound racist, but look at history very carefully. Africans have been spending a long time trying to get you to return to your human nature, while whites have been trying to get you to see it their way so they can control you. It didn't start yesterday, if you get my point. So yes, anyone who doesn't see it my way is very out of touch, and they remind me of my parents when they seem to be in some kind of hypnotic-like state. I would go as far as to say that my parents are being drugged ever so slightly in a way that they do not detect, so that they're more suggestible and vulnerable to satanic philosophies and ideas like, hey, soft kill your son, right? Imagine you're like 80, 90 years old. Why would you help them soft kill your son? So you can retire for like 3 years, in a mansion? I mean, my parents have lost their fucking minds when it comes to me. Everything else, and it goes back to when I was little, right? They must have been drugged their whole life, ever since my dad was brought here by the CIA. Remember, the CIA started the MK Ultra and so on. They brought my dad here because they thought they could control him with substances and psychology, and they were right. He was very productive in every aspect except for when it comes to his family, which he religiously sabotages with New World Order philosophies and psychiatry. Thank you. There is a small demographic of black Christians who are good people. And I'd go as far as to say that everyone else in the world is misled and evil, and the Bible is 100% true. Hispanics don't want to stick up for blacks because the story is not about them. Same with natives, and they tend to be short and stocky. So when you look at Egyptian, the harvest, physical prowess, and how it relates to reproduction in the harvest, it doesn't take a genius to figure out why people who are shallow and don't measure up, as they say, who can't rise to the occasion, as the saying goes, don't rise to the occasion. Asians make a lot of money working with whites, so even though they're not thick, they benefit. There are one of the several body types and peoples that benefit. All the short people and the thick people and the people who cannot be coordinated when they're tall, the Ichabod, Crane, Scooby-Doo types, the Northern Europeans especially, have vested interest in covering up the fact that the only people who are going to heaven in our generation are a small group of black people and a small demographic of black people and people who see it their way and go way out of their way to help them. It's common sense.
I will end this by saying the African martial artist is the only one whose honor code forces him to go to war with the New World Order, whereas other martial artists are part of a Eurasian martial arts system that is designed to uphold the state and the rich masters of the warrior class, if you will. Real fast PS, the Buddhists are natural deists. They study the planet to figure out who they are, and they believe that the planet is more important than their lives. So are Masons, black and white. The royal families mixed with Vikings, pirates, and other things. They see themselves as the White Knight, Dark Knight, and Pirates of the same time.